executing your kernel applications. So that kind of codes will be present in primary memory in the contiguous memory locations. So you know the meaning of contiguous. Contiguous means if it is a 32-bit processor or 64-bit processor, how many bytes will it take for each word location? Then the address will be calculated based on that. The next address will be calculated based on that. So if it starts from 1000, if it's a 4-byte for a memory word, then the next word will start from 1004, like that. So that is nothing but contiguous memory locations. So the memory space at which kernel code is located is known as kernel space. So where you are storing the programs related to the execution of the kernel, so which is not required from the user side. It is the from user side, it is not at all required. So that kind of program space or the memory space at which the kernel code is located is known as kernel space. So similarly, all user applications. So whatever the user uses the applications, that kind of user applications, the code or the program, whatever you write for that particular application to run. So that kind of user applications are loaded to specific area of primary memory, and this area is referred to as user space. So that is also available in your primary memory only. So some specific area they are going to identify, there you are going to store your applications, and that is going to be referred as the user space. So user space is nothing but the memory area where user applications are loaded and executed. So that is nothing but your user space. So it can be classified into two categories, kernel space and user space, or user applications or kernel applications. So the place memory space at which the kernel code is located is known as kernel space. The place or the memory area where your user applications are loaded and executed are called as or referred as user space. So that is the two different things you need to understand or know. So there are like different kinds of approaches are adopted for building an operating system kernel. So like what are the different approaches they are using for building the operating system kernel? So there are two approaches or types which are based on the kernel design. We can see here. So one is monolithic kernel and the other one is micro kernel. So kernels can be classified into two types based on the kernel design. So how the kernel is designed. So based on that design approach, so kernel can be classified into two types. One is monolithic kernel and the other one is micro kernel. So these two types of kernels are available. So we will see what is the difference between that. So in monolithic kernel architecture, or all kernel services run in kernel space. So you're going to run your services, all the kernel services are going to run in kernel space. So here all kernel modules run within same memory space under a single kernel thread. So you'll be having kernel modules which are going to run within same memory space. So it will be in the same memory space under a single kernel thread. So you're going to create threads for running your processes. So here all the kernel modules are going to run within the same memory space under a single kernel thread. So the tight internal integration of kernel modules in monolithic kernel architecture allows the effective utilization of the low-level features of the underlying system. So because of this, that means using the same memory space for a single thread, so that is the tight integration of the kernel modules will be helpful in the effective utilization of the low-level features of the underlying system. But you also have a major drawback of this type of kernel, that is monolithic kernel, that is that any error or failure in any of the kernel modules leads to the crashing of the entire kernel application. So any error or failure in any of the kernel modules leads to the crashing of the entire kernel application. So what are the examples of this monolithic kernels means? Linux, Solaris, MS-DOS, these are all the operating systems examples which comes under monolithic kernel. So this is how the monolithic kernel model looks like. So you will be having the applications, all the applications, and this is monolithic kernel with all operating system services running in the kernel in a single thread. So in one single space or in one single memory area, you will be running all your operating system services which is running in the kernel. If anything, any error occurs, everything is going to crash. So this is your monolithic kernel. So same way you have microkernel. So the microkernel design incorporates only the essential set of the operating system services into the kernel. So it will not place all the services of the operating system into the kernel. Instead, so in the microkernel design, it is going to make use of essential set of operating system services, which are the important services or essential services of the operating system. So that will be placed in the kernel. The rest of the operating system services are implemented as servers which run in user space. It will not come into the kernel space. It will go to the user space. The remaining are the non-essential kind of operating system services will be implemented as servers which runs in the user space. So this provides a highly modular design and operating system neutral abstraction kernel. So like memory management, process management, timer systems, interrupt handles, these are all going to come under essential services. So which are going to form the part of microkernel. And the remaining set of services which will be placed in the user space. So the examples for this kind of micro kernel, this thing is MASH, QNX, Minix 3. So these kernels are the examples for microkernel type. So this is the diagram you can see. So you'll be having applications, you'll be having servers. This means kernel services running in user space, non-essential services which will run in the user space. And these are the microkernel with essential services like memory management, process management, timer system, etc. So this is nothing but your microkernel with essential services. So next comes the types of operating system. So here we cannot call it as types of operating system. So with the help of the applications or the responsibilities, what we are going to consider, we are going to distinguish this as two types. So depending upon the type of the kernel and kernel services, like purpose and type of computing system, where the operating system is deployed, and the responsiveness to the applications, based on all these topics, we are going to classify the operating system into two different types. One as the general purpose operating system, the second one as the real-time operating system. So general purpose operating system, already you know, the operating system which is running in your systems, laptops, desktops, all these will come under general purpose operating system. So which are deployed in general computing system, which are referred as general purpose operating system. So which are quite non-deterministic in behavior. So which will not be more responsive in real-time operating. So that kind of operating systems, we call it as GPOS. Like Windows, all Windows XP, MS-DOS, all these things will come under GPOS. When it comes to real-time operating system, RTOS, it decides which applications should run in which order and how much time need to be allocated for each. Like it is deterministic. So it in a determined manner. So real-time operating system, it decides which application should run in which order. So one after the other, or this is first, this is second, like that. And how much time needed to be allocated, for each of it. So that kind of operating system, we call it as real-time operating system. So real-time operating system, or RTOS, it implements policies and rules concerning time critical allocation of a system resources. So RTOS means always it is time critical. So real time, it works in real time. So time is one of the important factor you need to consider here. So real-time operating system, it also implements policies and rules concerning with the time critical allocation of a system resources. So that is the two different types of operating system available. One is general purpose operating system. The second one is real-time operating system. So when it comes to the we are concentrating on real-time operating system here because of the embedded system design. So in embedded system design, always we use RTOS, or real-time operating system. We will not go with the general purpose operating system. So the kernel of real-time operating system is referred as real-time kernel. The basic functions of a real-time kernel, are listed below. So what are the basic functions of the real-time kernel are? So task or process management, as we have seen. So task or process scheduling also can be there. And then task or process synchronization, then error exception handling, so memory management, then interrupt handling, then time management. So these are the important functionalities or basic functions of a real-time kernel. So the basic functions of a real-time kernel are the task or process management, or task or process scheduling. So task or process scheduling, then task or process synchronization, then error or exception handling, and then memory management, then interrupt handling, and then time management. So these are the important basic functions of real-time kernel. Excuse me. So first one, that is task or process management. So it deals with setting up of memory space for the task, loading the task code into memory space, then allocating system resources, setting up a task control block for a task, and task process rumination and deletion. All these things are the main functionalities of task process management. So TCB usually that is task control block. TCB means task control block. It contains the following set of information. So what all the information the TCB should have? So one is task ID, that is task identification number. You are going to give it an ID for each of the tasks. So the operating system or the kernel will allocate the ID for that task ID. So that is task identification number. Second one is task state. So the current state of the task. So in which state that particular task is there. So that will be updated. Then task type. So hard real time or soft real time. So what is the type of the operating real time it is working with, whether it is a hard real time or soft real time. Hard real time means it should respond to a particular time within that time only. Soft means it can take some time. So task priority, whether it is priority is one or other priorities, then context priority, then task memory pointers, pointers to others. All these things are going to be updated, are the informations which are going to be available in the TCB. Next is task or process scheduling. So it deals with sharing the CPU among various tasks or processes. So you know the scheduling, you might have learned many scheduling algorithms in the operating system subject. So you know what is task scheduling or process scheduling. So it needs to allocate the CPU among all the various tasks or the processes which are running in multi environment. So kernel application called as scheduler. So you are going to have the scheduler which is going to handle the task scheduling process. Different scheduling algorithms are available. Based on that, the scheduler is going to allocate the task or schedules the tasks or the processes. So scheduler is nothing but an algorithm implementation which performs the efficient and optimal scheduling. You have to go for optimal scheduling of tasks to provide a deterministic behavior. So you have n number of scheduling algorithms available, and you would have learned also by this time what are the different scheduling algorithms available. So that is going to be the major thing which will be used here in the scheduling of all the tasks or the processes. Then synchronization. So process synchronization deals with synchronizing the concurrent access of a resource which is shared across multiple tasks and the communication between various tasks. So if two or more tasks are running and they are sharing the resources or access the resources which are shared across multiple tasks, how the synchronization should happen between those multiple tasks which are running, and how each task has to communicate with the other task. So that synchronization is also going to be taken care by this real-time kernel. Then error or exception handling. So whenever you are executing any program, like a program execution is going on, so that time you may expect some errors. So how to handle that kind of errors or exceptions? So it deals with registering and handling the errors occurred or exceptions raised during the exception of tasks. So insufficient memory is one of the exception you may get. Then timeout condition, then deadlock, so then deadline missing or bus error or divide by zero or unknown exception. These are the kinds of exceptions or errors that may occur during the execution of the program. So if you are trying to execute your program and that program is not loaded into the primary memory properly, you will not be having enough memory to load that particular program. Even then you are trying to execute that program, it may raise an exception saying that insufficient memory for executing your program. So that is one kind of exception. How to handle that exception? So that exception handling need to be taken care. So deadlock. So you know, you are aware of deadlock also. It is an example of kernel level exception, whereas timeout is an example for a task level exception. So deadlock is an example for kernel level exception. So where your process or the task will be held. So you will not be able to come out from that particular task, where it will be held. So that is nothing but lock or deadlock. So timeout is an example for task level exception. So OS kernel gives the information about the error in the form of a system call or API. So it gives the description of that particular error or exception. Then task or process synchronization. This we did. Then memory management. So like compared to the general purpose operating system, like the memory management function of an RTOS kernel is slightly different. So in general purpose system, you will be having a huge memory, secondary storage, primary storage, all those things will be there, and you need to manage in the general purpose system, the memory. It will be a different way. So whereas when you come to the real time, so RTOS uses block-based memory allocation technique instead of using dynamic memory allocation. So when you go with the general purpose, you will be using dynamic memory allocation, but here RTOS, it uses block-based memory allocation. So the blocks are stored in a free buffer queue. So you'll be having free buffer queues. So and these blocks are going to be stored in that free buffer queue. And a few RTOS kernels implement virtual memory concept also for memory allocation if the system supports secondary storage. So usually embedded system will be having a less amount of memory requirement, as well as you will be having a very small amount of chips which will be used in the embedded system. So you will not go for secondary storage. Very few embedded systems will make use of secondary storage. So a few RTOS kernels implements virtual memory concepts for memory allocation if the system supports secondary storage. The block memory concept, it avoids the garbage collection overhead. So that is the reason it uses this block-based memory method for this. Then you also have interrupt handling. So interrupt informs the processor that an external device or an associated task requires immediate attention of the CPU. So what's an interrupt means? It informs the processor that some external device or associated task with that particular device, it requires immediate attention of the CPU. So it need to be addressed immediately. So interrupts which occur in sync with the currently executing task is known as synchronous interrupts. So already some execution is happening, related to that some interrupt occurs. So whatever the currently executing task, you are executing some task related to that currently executing task, some interrupt occurs. So that kind of interrupt we call it as synchronous interrupts. So usually the software interrupts fall under synchronous interrupt category, like divide by zero, memory segmentation error. All these are examples of synchronous interrupts. So for synchronous interrupts, the interrupt handler runs in the same context of interrupting task. So in the same task itself, the handler is also going to run. But asynchronous interrupts are interrupts which occur at any point of execution of any task, which whether it is related to that task or not, it will not see. So asynchronous interrupts will occur at any point of execution of any task or not in sync with the currently executing task. It may not relate to the currently executing task at all. So interrupt generated by external devices, like suppose some interrupts which are going to be generated by external devices are the examples of asynchronous interrupt. So again, time management is also one of the important service what real-time operating system or the kernel should provide, because in embedded system environment, many of the applications are time critical. So you need to have the time management also, like for example, ABS and automatic brake system or airbag system, control system in your car, or all those things. It is time management, flight control. So all these should have a critical time management system. So that is also should be managed by the operating system kernel, real-time operating system kernel. So the time reference to the kernel is provided by a high resolution real-time clock, RTC. We call it as real-time clock hardware chip. So you'll be having hardware timer or hardware chip called as RTC or real-time clock. So the hardware timer is programmed to interrupt the processor or the controller at a fixed rate. So this RTC is going to work, or it is going to interrupt the processor at a fixed rate. So the timer interrupt is referred as timer tick. You are going to have a timer tick. So that is nothing but referred as the timer interrupt. So the timer tick interrupt is handled by the timer interrupt handler of the kernel. So the timer tick interrupt is utilized for implementing the following actions. So save the current context, whatever the context you are running, that will be saved. Save the current context, then increment the system time register by 1. So you're going to increment the system time register by 1. then generate the timing error and reset the system time register if the timer tick count is greater than the maximum range available for system time register. So you'll be having maximum range available for the system time register, and same way you will be having the timer tick. So for the timer tick also you will be having a fixed rate. So you're going to check with both. If the timer tick count is greater than the maximum range available for the system time register, so you're going to generate a timing error. Then activate the periodic which are in the idle state. Then delete all the terminated tasks and their associated data structures, TCBs and all. So next is hard real time. Real-time operating systems that strictly adhere to the timing constraints for a task is referred as hard real-time system. So it has to strictly adhere to the timing constraints. That kind of real-time operating systems is referred as hard real-time systems. So a hard real-time system must meet the deadlines for a task without any slippage. That means it should not take any risk. So it should react within that particular time, whatever it is specified. So missing any deadline may produce catastrophic results for hard real-time systems. So emphasize the principle, a late answer is a wrong answer. So it can be like if you miss any deadline, it will produce a disaster, or the results will not be as expected. So for hard real-time systems. So for example, airbag control system. So whenever any accident occurs, immediately the airbag should open. So within a fraction of seconds, whatever the time they have specified, within that time it should open. So anti-lock brake system. Again, these are all the examples of hard real-time system. So airbag control system should follow strict timing deadline. So current executing tasks should be preempted. That means whatever you are doing, so you are driving, you are doing something, so that execution or that task should be stopped immediately. And then airbag control system has to take over and it should open. So if any accident occurs. So as rule of thumb, hard real-time systems does not implement virtual memory model for handling memory. So this eliminates the delay in swapping in and out of the code corresponding to the task. So when it comes to the soft real time, so real-time operating system that does not guarantee meeting the deadlines are referred as soft real-time systems. So here time will not be a critical part. So it may take, like missing the deadlines are acceptable. So if you have given the deadline and you miss that also for a few minutes or seconds, that is also acceptable. That kind of systems we call it as soft real-time systems. A late answer is an acceptable answer, but it could have done faster. So sometimes late submission or late answer, it can be acceptable, but it could have done in a faster manner. So ATM is an example of soft real-time system. So if an ATM takes few seconds extra processing time, so nothing will happen. So when you go to the ATM, sometimes you put the card, immediately it starts responding. Or sometimes it may not respond as fast as it is going to take some more time. So if it does, it takes some more time also, there is nothing to lose there. So you have to wait for some time and then you have to finish your task and come out. So that kind of systems, we call it as soft real-time system. So I think enough for today's class. So I'll be stopping here only. So a lot of discussions we did in today's class based on the operating system. So what is an operating system? So what is a kernel? What are the functionalities of the kernel? What are the important services which are provided by the kernel? We discussed, and we discussed the types of the kernel, monolithic kernel and microkernel. And then we understood what is kernel space and user space also. And we also seen the types of operating system, that is general purpose operating system and real-time operating system. And this real-time operating system is going to be used in all our embedded system design. And in real-time kernel, so what are the services or the functions, basic functions of the real-time kernel, that also we discussed. So in the next class, we will be dealing with the next part of the module 5. So I'll be ending the session here only. Is it okay? Should I stop? Okay. So we'll meet in the next class.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, bye.